Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Stephen Nehrenz with This Week in Weather.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Stephen Nehrenz here. Welcome again to This Week in Weather on this September 24th, as always streaming from our News on 6 digital desk. And for the first time, I believe that we will be posting this on our News on 6 Weather YouTube channel. That's at News on 6 Weather on YouTube. It's been on our News on 6 main News on 6 YouTube channel. We're going to start posting these on the weather specific YouTube channel. So make sure you are going there. Literally just, either at News on 6 Weather with the link there on YouTube, or just, go to YouTube and search News on 6 Weather and you'll find the channel pretty quickly. That's where we're going to start posting these. Of course, and as I always say, if you got questions, comments, suggestions, you know where to find me. My email address, Facebook page on the screen, commenting on these YouTube videos as well. And as I've said over the last few weeks in particular, I haven't been able to introduce guests this month because things have been very busy behind the scenes here at News on 6. We have been for the last several months, but in particular, the last several weeks getting ready for our brand new studio that you're going to be seeing debut this weekend. So that's one of a few reasons why I've been able to introduce or have to bring in guests here on This Week in Weather, just because it's been a little too chaotic behind the scenes. But starting next week and going forward, I'm going to be able to start introducing a few more guests for This Week in Weather. As we get further into fall, I think we'll have some good guests. We'll definitely have some good guests and some interesting things to discuss. Now we've finally turned the page into fall officially, right? Just want that fall weather to come back. I am going to discuss there's a difference. You'll hear us sometimes talk about meteorological fall versus the first day of fall. And usually every year I get questions of why are those different? Why are those different things? We'll just give you kind of a good explainer of what that is. All right, so the seasons, right? Spring, summer, winter, and fall. And those are based off of astronomy, all right? Or I should say astronomy, based off of the sun and how it rotates throughout the year, the tilt, in particular, the tilt of the Earth, and how, as we go throughout the year, how that's as the Earth rotates, and that tilt where the sun angle is with regards to the equator in particular determines when the seasons start. And you see the date ranges on the screen there. I wanted to go full screen so you could read that because the text is a little small. The range of dates for when each season starts and ends can vary by a day or two each year because of the amount of time that it takes the Earth's rotation during a year. There's a year, technically 365.24 days. That's why we have a leap year every 4 years, that quote extra day. And that also impacts the slight changes in the dates of when the official seasons start. Again, Earth's tilted on its axis at 23.5 degrees, and the seasons are caused, when the seasons start and end rather, are determined by the Earth's tilt and when the sun passes over the equator, and in particular with spring and fall, that's when that sun angles directly over the equator, which leads to nearly equal daytime and nighttime. I put nearly equal because technically, if you follow this, and if you can look this up online pretty easily, sunrise, sunset time frames for your specific city, and you can see there's actually a few days difference between the equinox and the day when it's actually 12 hours of daytime, 12 hours of nighttime. That's called the equilux. And in fall, that's actually a few days after the equinox because of, again, when the sun is actually directly over the equator versus when you reach the point when it's actually exactly 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night. So, a very technical point there, but there's actually a slight difference between the equinox and then the day of 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night, which is called the equilux. Just throw that in there. That's I don't know if everyone's interested in that point, but it's something that comes up on occasionally from time to time. Now, I mentioned earlier, I was talking about how we've talked about, fall began, which was Okay, today's the 24th. I'm trying to remind myself here at the beginning of the week. But a few weeks ago, you might have heard us saying, oh, it's the start of meteorological fall. And you're going, okay, what's the difference? Why are there two different falls, for lack of a better term? And I'll go full screen again so you can read that text. It's not that we're trying to, say that the official astronomical seasons are not official, because of course they are. But what it is here, and you can see the explanation on the screen, again, astronomical seasons, it's fall, especially astronomical fall, follows the autumn equinox, the winter solstice, as far as the start and end dates there. It's based on, like I said, the rotation of the Earth, the tilt of the Earth's axis as it interacts with the sun. Meteorological fall is a much more just kind of straightforward way of basing the meteorological seasons on the annual temperature cycles, and also it's a much kind of cleaner way for us to do record-keeping data analysis. When it's so like meteorological fall, September, October, November. Meteorological winter, December, January, February. Meteorological spring, March, April, May. Get it? And then meteorological summer, June, July, August. It's for lack of a better term, kind of a neater way, or a more concise way of being able to look at those seasons from a temperature cycle standpoint, but also for keeping records and keeping the historical data that we analyze over the years. That's why there's a difference between the two. Again, not that one is right and one is wrong, but that's what those two are. But of course, the official start of fall, which is what we had on Monday, that's astronomical fall, that's based on the equinox, right? Having said all of that, there was a lot of talk about seasons and fall and things like that. We've had some, I guess you could say, spring and summer-like weather over the last few days as fall has begun. We had some big-time storms actually going all the way back to last weekend. Saturday and Sunday, we had a couple tornado warnings over the past weekend in parts of eastern Oklahoma, and then Monday and Tuesday, in particular, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. We had some pretty noisy storms that came rumbling across parts of eastern Oklahoma. There were some very cool views in the sky. I loved this picture from Jen near Wagner, and I'll go full screen because I want you to be able to see it in all its glory there, as we had those towering cumulonimbus clouds, and then that sunset starting to set over. It just made for some gorgeous colors. Another shot, this is fantastic picture, looking at the top of those cumulonimbus clouds from Diane in Tahlequah with sunset. Another picture from Tahlequah as those storms were rolling in a little bit earlier in the late afternoon, early evening time frame. That shelf cloud out ahead of it, which is, again, when we have these thunderstorms develop, whether they're severe or not, if they're strong enough, they develop, a gust front, an outflow boundary that pushes out ahead of those storms. And then as that cool air, as that starts to rise again, it condenses, makes clouds on the leading edge of the storms. And that's what leads to those shelf clouds, or the gust front, shelf clouds along the gust front. Also, this picture from Cary, this is northeastern Pittsburgh County, and again, parts of southeastern Oklahoma during the latter half of Tuesday had some storms that were obviously pretty severe with damaging wind and large hail, but they were organized, and they had some rotation. Some of them had wall clouds with them. And like I said, last weekend we had a few storms that produced tornado warnings, and that storm that moved through Sallisaw Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening, that produced quite a bit of damage. As of now, as I'm recording this, there still hasn't been an official determination on straight line winds versus a tornado in Sallisaw. That will be determined in the days ahead. The National Weather Service will make that ultimate determination. But either way, the winds were severe enough in Sallisaw to cause damage at the hospital. Several homes were damaged there as well. And I point all this out to say that I've said this a lot over the years, that it doesn't matter this season. We can have severe weather any time of year. Now, obviously, we have parts of the year that are much more prone to severe weather. You know the drill, right? Spring. This is just looking at average tornadoes. It's a graphic I've showed before, but it's just a good one to kind of remind you about, because obviously spring is the big severe weather season, right? But we often do get a second flare-up, miniature, we call miniature compared to spring, but kind of a second, smaller, more condensed severe weather season can happen around here in fall. And it might not look like much as you look at the average tornadoes month per month. This is for the state of Oklahoma, kind of the average statistics. But you notice how obviously you see the big peak in May and then through early June, and then it drops off July and August. But then notice how September, October, and November, it's not like it's a huge jump back up, but and as I'll take this full screen, you'll notice how those numbers go back up slightly into September and October, and even into the first part of November. Basically, the beginning of fall around here, or at least the first half of fall, we can have kind of a second flare-up of severe weather. It's not uncommon at all, like we've just seen over the last few days. So I always like to bring that up as, you know, as we change into fall, and we all want just like, okay, I want the cool fall weather. I want the cool mornings and the nice afternoons. And trust me, I do too, because I'm a huge fall weather fan. But it's worth noting that this time of year, not uncommon at all for us to have, you know, severe weather opportunities. And in particular on Tuesday, we had so much instability in the atmosphere because it was hot and muggy. I mean, Tuesday, the heat index went over 105 in southeastern Oklahoma, which was just gross, for lack of a better word. That heat and humidity was, you know, a lot of instability that was put into the atmosphere as those storm systems rolled through the severe weather, again, earlier in the week. That's in the past. Now here's what's ahead of us. It's kind of a wacky looking jet stream flow if you look at the big picture on the map there. And you know what has been really a driving force of our weather for the past several weeks now is that upper level ridge, the big old H there kind of on the left side of the screen. That's that mid to upper level ridge of high pressure that had been centered over us for a while as we went through the end of summer when we were heating up and drying out. And then as we've gone into the beginning of fall here, officially anyways, that has been centered off to our west. What it's done is I've drawn the arrows on the screen. You can see there's multiple storm systems kind of on either side of that ridge, but it's forced the big jet stream flow well to the north, up into Canada, southern Canada, and then it kind of dives to the south through, in that kind of dip in the jet stream to the south is what brought us those storm systems over the last few days. That will start to transition as we head over the next several days. So I'm going to show you kind of where we're headed from here. Now on this big picture view here, the main jet stream flow, kind of like the biggest, strongest jet stream, kind of the main steering current, is still going to stay well to the north, way up into Canada, because that upper level ridge is still just dominating things. So just watch as the big picture kind of goes here through the end of the week into the weekend. There's a lot of upper level lows kind of drifting their way around, you know, in a fairly weak upper level flow. The main jet stream flow, again, stays way to the north, northern United States, all the way up into Canada, because that upper level ridge is continuing to control the weather pattern quite a bit. Same deal. Early next week, there's multiple storm systems drifting through. This would be, you know, by the middle of next week, as we hit the very end of September and the beginning of October, storm systems come drifting through. They may bring us some shower chances, maybe take the edge off the temperatures a little bit. But again, we head into the beginning of October, and this is towards the end of next week. And notice, again, that jet stream flow is still well to the north. And I point that out, I've pointed this out before over the last few weeks, is because we really need that stronger jet stream to dip south to bring us some good fall cold fronts as we head from the end of the month. Even into the beginning of October, the jet stream flow is still not supporting that quite yet. So we do think that even though we've got nicer weather incoming here for the rest of this week, and then towards, at least for the end of this week, towards the beginning of the weekend, it is nicer weather, absolutely. I don't want to discount that at all. It's going to feel great to be outside because the humidity is dropping over the next few days and the cool mornings return. It's going to be great, but we just don't have the big, like, powerhouse fall cold front showing up yet. And, you know, this time for the beginning of fall, that's not unsurprising. And sometimes it can take us a little while for those big fronts to arrive, cold fronts, that is. So over the next several days, you can see the departure from normal here over the next several afternoons for the end of the week through the weekend into the first part of next week. Normal high would be low 80s, and notice we're back several degrees above that by the weekend and early next week, which put our highs in the upper 80s. Some spots may even go a degree or two higher than that, but this is coming with less humidity, not the summertime mugginess that we had at the beginning of this week. So even though we're going to have still plenty of warm to very warm afternoons ahead of us, from the end of the week through the weekend, it's still going to feel better to be outside. Still, the trend, this is looking well down the line, past the end of next week and getting us into the first several days of October. Again, the trend for a lot of the country still suggests warmer than normal conditions. As long as that main jet stream flow stays locked up to the north, it's going to be hard for us to get, you know, a big cold front that barrels across a lot of the country and cools a lot of us off. Now, again, there will be some ebbs and flows in this and eventually some changes as we head down the line and get into October. The weather pattern, it's not, kind of doesn't lean one way or another as far as how much more rain we pick up to start October. Now again, like I said, the good news for us getting into this quieter weather pattern, man, it lines up perfect for the start of the Tulsa State Fair. For Thursday, the opening day, a high right around 80 degrees for Thursday afternoon, a north breeze, drying out, not only just, pushing the rain out of here, but drying out from a humidity standpoint. Less humidity moves in. So it is going to be picture perfect weather for the first day of the Tulsa State Fair on Thursday. And then how about going into this upcoming this weekend for the first weekend of the Tulsa State Fair? Also looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? Low 80s, about 80 Thursday, low 80s Friday, mid to upper 80s Saturday and Sunday. Again, those afternoons will get pretty warm again, but we'll have plenty of sunshine, winds will be light, and it's not going to be muggy. So it's not going to be, Saturday and Sunday it's not going to be 86 with like a heat index of 95. It's not going to be that, all right? It's going to be warm, but a fairly dry air mass in place. So it will still be very nice weather to get outside and enjoy. And then looking down the line here, I'll take this full screen because that's a lot of numbers to look at. This would be kind of looking at the entire stretch run of the Tulsa State Fair. I think we're set up for a pretty quiet weather pattern for most of the fair. Now, by late next week, caveat here is those numbers for next weekend, that is a long ways out. So suffice to say, there will be some changes between now and then. Those numbers could change some. Those rain chances could change a little bit. It looks like by the tail end of the Tulsa State Fair, at the end of next weekend, there may be some, at least a day or two of rain chances to deal with. And those temperatures could fluctuate some. But in general, it looks like we're in for plenty of warm afternoons, but dry conditions for the first several days of the Tulsa State Fair. And then we'll see how that pans out for the very end of the fair. A couple more forecasts for you before we bid farewell for this week. As we head into the upcoming weekend, you're making those weekend plans for football on Saturday. The OSU game in Stillwater. Obviously, with the news this week, with Mike Gundy not there anymore, it's going to be, a very different Saturday in Stillwater, right? But the weather's going to be great. Not expecting with the weather to cause any issues at all. Now, it will be very warm. Tailgating temperatures, this is 2:30 kickoff on Saturday for OSU. Tailgating temperature around 80 by the late morning, midday hours. Temperatures for the game in the upper 80s. I've got halftime at about 90. It might stay a degree or two below that. It's going to be very warm for those late afternoon hours, upper 80s, sunshine and just a light south breeze. Again, but no showers or storms for us to worry about. So if you're going to go cheer on, I know they want a big crowd on Saturday for OSU's. They kind of head into a new era here. The weather is going to cooperate. Same for TU on Saturday. The TU game, 3 p.m. Saturday against Tulane. Weather looks gorgeous. Tailgating a few hours before the game. It will be about 80. That'd be about the noon hour. And then mid to upper 80s during the TU game against Tulane. Sunshine and a light south breeze. As I always say with these forecasts, I want you to obviously check back in as we go through the end of the week. This is recording this on Wednesday. We're talking about the forecast on Saturday. It could change a little bit, but it's looking like this is going to hold pretty steady for the end of the week, into the weekend, I should say. As far as the forecast should hold steady for our Saturday outdoor events. And really that goes for whatever your outdoor events are. If you're going to the Tulsa State Fair or you're going to a football game or, this is the time of year when there are festivals galore across Green Country. The weather is going to cooperate over the next several days. Cool mornings and sunny, warm afternoons are going to start becoming the rule here for the next several days, which again makes for great conditions for us to enjoy. As always, I appreciate you joining me here on This Week in Weather, streaming on our YouTube channel. And again, start looking for these on our News on 6 weather-specific YouTube channels. That's on YouTube. That's at News on 6 Weather, the full word weather. Or if you just go to YouTube and search News on 6 Weather, you should be able to pretty easily find our weather-specific YouTube channel where you can see This Week in Weather. And then if you're looking for kind of the archived episodes that we've done up to this point, you can find that on the main News on 6 YouTube channel. But again, we're going to start posting This Week in Weather on the weather-specific News on 6 Weather YouTube channel. As always, I appreciate you joining me for This Week in Weather. And again, going forward, I'm going to start looking forward to having some more guests joining me as we head into October and get further into the fall. But I always appreciate you tuning in and watching. Thanks for watching this week. We'll see you next time. Be good to each other.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio live stream from the Bob Mills Weather Center. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest weather updates to keep you safe and informed.